We're here today with Clare Campbell, owner and the person who got things started with Prickly Thistle, which is a tartan mill in the Highlands of Scotland. And Clare and Prickly Thistle were featured in one of the segments in Men in Kilts last night. And I talked to Clare and asked her if she would be willing to come and chat with me for all of you on our radio show and for a subsequent article in 3FI Space. And she graciously agreed to come and chat with us. So welcome, Clare.
Oh no, gosh! For me, it's the honours to be asked. So no, thank you very much for having me on tonight. And yeah, look forward to chatting through all sorts with you, Erin.
Well, one of the things that I like to do with Outlander and with Men in Kilts is to focus on some of the unique people and the interesting things that they find that Sam and Graham have found. And of course, you have been well known to Outlander fans for a couple of years as you've gotten your Kickstarter Plan B going, and as you were featured as part of Tartan Week and all of these things. So if you could tell me a little bit about, and we'll get back into the history of Prickly Thistle, but tell me about what Prickly Thistle does now.
Oh, what we do now. Yeah, so now we're here, we're at our temporary home just north of Inverness, about 15 miles north of Inverness. So what we specialise in is tartan design, and we manufacture our designs that we do in-house and we do for other amazing clients that we work with. So we manufacture those cloths on our amazing 100-year-old looms, and we also provide a sort of bespoke product creation service where there is no rules and we're always open to wacky ideas. But yeah, so we create a whole range of products here on site as well. So yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do now as of today.
The intro to your segment last night on Men in Kilts started with the clans have produced all their own tartans, but you don't actually produce clan tartans. No. Tell us about that and why you don't.
Yeah, it was something that I sort of made this sort of promise to myself and to all of the others who I'd gotten to know, and what was a really shocking for me how small Scottish textiles was as an industry. I didn't really appreciate how few mills had been left in Scotland when it used to be, one of our sort of major industries for employment. So having worked for a few years with these other mills and getting to know them really well, I had the utmost respect for what they were doing, what they had been doing, and knowing that they actually had to work really hard to kind of, stay in the game. So it was really important for me that when I sort of, in my wisdom, thought it would be a good thing to come and create textiles weaving in the mainland Highland region again, because there was nobody at that point. There used to be a mill many years ago that was, a couple of 100 years old, but sadly closed down. But it was really important for me that when we did that I didn't displace what was the mainstay, the bread and butter, if you like, of their business. And a lot of these businesses had really perfected the creation of all these amazing clan tartans that everyone was familiar with, and the whole sort of Highland dress garments. So for me, it's really important to come in and contribute to the sector, for the respect I had for these people. So we don't do clan tartans. I'll very regularly refer all the people I know who are Murrayshire, sort of Central Belt, and down the Scottish borders, who I know produce these tartans. Yeah, so I pass on their information, and then where that left us was, maybe made things harder, but I think what it has certainly done is encourage us to be a little bit more creative. So we specialise in creating new clan tartans in some respects, and it's where we don't really necessarily look at bloodlines as the community, as the connections. It's more about sort of values and messaging. So it's the same parallel of identity that we all know are associated with those mighty clans. So for us, we use that analogy, but we use it in a slightly different sort of community base. So it's very similar, but yeah, there was two things there. I really had the most respect for everybody else who was still there, and I wanted to come in and add to the future.
Yeah. And that seems to be part of the overall value statement that you have created for Prickly Thistle. And it's a little unusual in this consumer-driven society that your value statement really focuses on honesty and integrity. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's and I suppose it's not to do with Scottish textiles, in any sense. It's really, me at that moment in my life and my sort of personal awakening of things in the past that I did, in terms of sort of values based and sort of economic and environmental, modern slavery, these things that I contributed to and funded in the past as an individual. I didn't even think, I was one of those unconscious consumers, without a doubt. And what's kind of been this rabbit hole of journey for me with Prickly Thistle is realizing, actually, with tartan having such a strong identity and symbolism, and gathering kind of emotion, then to be able to sort of weave that in, if you like, to
Right.
What is really a very small place. We're so sort of nomadic and global now. What happens in other countries matters to everybody else. So yeah, so for me, it's about seeing what we're doing as a real sort of positive force for good, and how we can sort of make those call to arms and rally people up, and and that's something that's sort of really sort of intrinsically linked to our ancestors, but it's using that kind of spirit and sort of integrity, but to really deal with what's happening in the world today. So yeah, so it's very similar. It's just looking at what the battles are for today and for everyone, and how we can hopefully play a role, pay it forward, and inspire others to sort of become more conscious. And that's, for me, that's been a real sort of personal journey. And yeah, now I know, and I feel like, well, if I can share it with respect to others, maybe slowly we'll start to see the change that we need to see in the world.
Right. And along with that, you have partnered with other Highlands artists and artisans. I noticed on your website you have soaps, and you talk about leather workers, and you have some stoneware. Can you tell me about those partnerships and what they've done for your vision of what Prickly Thistle is?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it comes across, and certainly for me, the intention is it's very sort of community focused, and it's those artisan skills that are very labor intensive. They're highly skilled, and pre doing Prickly Thistle in my sort of previous career as an accountant and things, I was fighting this industry 4.0 before it became, it consumed everything. There's amazing advances, in terms of communications and things like that. But for me, it was really important to sort of look back to see that this was a really important part of the future. So to be able to collaborate with other Highland artisans on that level was part of my sort of main motive, if you like, to go and start this sort of adventure. Was about, it was about job creation in the Highlands, and how I could hopefully sort of create confidence and create support for these people. So yeah, so we work with, you've mentioned leather workers, stoneware, wood turners, and they're all within a kind of stone's throw from us. And it's been amazing to work with them. And for me, it's always kind of fed that creative kind of hunger that I have as well.
Right,
I like to see what people do in other sectors and think, oh, I wonder if we could do this here and here. And maybe it's the accountant in me that always, for many years, used to document systems. I still quite like to know how processes work. So it's been really fascinating. And then what's really become quite obvious around all of that as well is the whole circular economy, and how all these byproducts and waste products and repurpose and recycling, how these things can all be quite, naturally flowing and good for the environment. And so it's kind of, it's quite symbolic of that kind of community but circular mission that we have.
It's that really fits in with how Outlanders started for the TV series, how they used local ironmongers and weapons builders. And we talked with Liz Bolton last week, thanks to Kat McQuistion, who got her on, who is a local embroiderer and textile person. An Outlander was always focused under the direction of Gary Steele and Terry Dresbach on finding those local people who had these skills that went back years and years to contribute to the look and the success of Outlander. And so to have you involved with, I guess, we'll more say that the Outlander fans are involved with you, supporting you and everything. And I think that's where that outgrowth comes from.
Yeah.
So that's been really interesting. You call yourself a rebel.
Yes.
You rebel Clare. Have you always felt this way, or was this also part of the process of bringing Prickly Thistle to life? Did that awaken the rebel in you?
Yeah, I don't think so. I suppose it's defining the word rebel, isn't it? There's lots of definitions. Some are not so good. But no, for me, I suppose I've always liked to challenge, and I've always thought nothing was impossible. So that kind of rebelliousness in me to kind of not take no for an answer, I suppose, has always been there. And that's probably been all my life, that kind of dogged determination. So that's probably where I would sort of define more the sort of rebelliousness. Certainly what's become kind of more kind of to the surface for me is that real courage to speak out, sort of the realization of being silent on things is saying you agree with them. So it's been sort of pushing that boundaries of speaking out a little bit more and sort of sharing what we've learned. So I think I've always challenged, and my husband will tell you absolutely that I never say nothing's impossible. Yes, you can make this. Yes, you can do that. The whole kind of never giving up. He would call me really stubborn, but I think so that rebel there. So rebel for good, in the sense that when I think it really matters, then I won't give up. No matter how many times I might get knocked down, I just keep going.
Yeah. Well, that leads us into, how did Prickly Thistle get started? I know there was a Kickstarter that failed. Can you bring us through the process of how you got interested in this and then how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, it's I suppose I'm kind of in my mid-30s, and my children were a little bit older, so they were kind of sort of 5 and 6, 4 and 5, and lots of things. I think most people are moved predominantly to do major things from a personal situation, and usually it's and it is what it is, but usually it's something that's quite severe and sort of sad and upsetting that really sort of moves you to go and really change things. So we had that in our family a while ago, and it was kind of sleeping there, but a few other things had happened, and it kind of thought, gosh, for me the realization was life is so short, Claire, and what are they going, what will your children, grandchildren, or whoever knows you say about you? Not that you had the nice car or you had the nice holidays or you had, it's like, for me, I wanted to make a difference. I was so grateful and fortunate, despite what happened to us, for everything else I had. The glass was always half full, and it really kind of made you look at life in a completely different way. So that kind of really sort of inspired me to kind of reach a point where a few things in my sort of professional career at that time, I just thought, no, this is just not who I am. This is not how I want to spend, kind of mid-30s, the next 30 years of my life. So that happened. And then with tartan, I think really I've always kind of had a desire, I also like the aesthetics of tartan. And somebody asked me this last week, and I said, despite being an accountant and every accountant out there using Excel, which looks like a tartan, to be fair, but with no color,
Right.
I've always really sort of I've loved the simpleness of it, more so than the clan side that I was, despite being a Highlander, I'm a McDonald that married a Campbell, and all of that kind of stuff, and so I'd always had a real sort of kind of soft spot for the design aesthetic because it's simple, and then the sort of, as I say, that moment in my life where I realized how important legacy and identity. So when someone's not with you anymore, their legacy and their identity should still be talked about on a daily basis, and that should be okay without feeling sad or awkward or anything like that. So
Right.
that was running always at the back of me. And what's the worst that could happen, Claire, when you go off and do this, that it doesn't work out? You're not going to lose. Yeah, there's not going to be a loss of life. You know what that's about. So actually go and try this. So that was the motivation. And then I just fell down this massive rabbit hole, like, Alice in Wonderland falling into some sort of tartan world. And every time I turned a corner, I learned something new, and I became more obsessed with the history. The accountant was then really sort of looking at the due diligence and the economics and how it was this massive industry, and how it becomes so small, but yet from a global perspective, it was one of our most iconic contributions to the world. And so, so I ran with the two sides there, my heart and my head, and just went on this massive journey. And working with the mills that I mentioned, to have the utmost respect for, I appreciated their business models. Me coming in with a little order for a bespoke piece was, it didn't quite work when you were at a certain size and your focus was on other areas,
Right.
and I respected that. So for me to continue and create the jobs that I wanted to create, I had to build a mill. And yes, so crowdfunding was really the kind of the only option in many respects, because in Scotland, knowing the back history of possibly more financial failures when it came to textiles, there was not very many investors or banks who'd be prepared to kind of, sort of put skin in the game, if you like, for this sort of business. So crowdfunding was for me taking the story of, actually, I want to bring back weaving to the Highland region, and I want to protect those skills, and I want to sort of look at this rural regeneration piece. And so you mentioned there, Erin, the first campaign failed. It was, I was this close. I think for like half a day, I was like, that's it. I can't do it anymore. I'm so tired. And then I spoke to a friend of mine and went for a walk on the beach, and just was kind of like, pouring my guts out, just to like, I just was, how could I have failed? And then, just kind of thought, do you know what, plan B, don't give up, Claire. There were so many people that supported you that first time round. It was a big ask. And then, I went back in the February. So it was the December the 14th that finished. And then by February the 14th, 8 weeks later, I was back on again. And, so that's 3 years ago, just last month, that we did that. And now, here we are. We've got a team of 14 people, thanks to everybody who's invested in our brand and bought our products. That's customers direct, and all of the amazing people we've worked with. And we've created these 14 jobs. We've got these looms just running, a treat. And we're working quite a lot in the background with academics, so we can do a lot more with native plants, native fleeces, really sort of pushing forward 21st century developments in science and how we can be, that authentic in terms of made in Scotland. So I'm kind of always sort of pushing behind the scenes,
Right.
to my government and to the academics to do more, and hopefully clearing the path for somebody else to come and do what we're doing behind us.
It must have been a huge learning curve for you, though. I can't imagine that you knew a fraction of what you know now about wool and about the looms and about, you were an accountant, you would know business, but it's the other side of it. My husband's an accountant too. And whenever he looks at a new business, I know that he has to learn everything. He went from manufacturing to restaurants, a completely different thing. So how was that to tackle this huge, what had to be almost, daunting amount of information that you had to know?
When we did the plan B, the first part of that in February 2018, I'd found these beautiful looms in the Scottish borders, been lying for 5 years, not used. And I thought, gosh, right, I don't have someone just yet who can show me how to work them, but they'll be around. I was convinced. So we got this equipment, just got them on the back of two big, massive 40-ton low loaders, moved them up to the north, and my husband's going, Claire, this is nuts. You don't even know how to switch them on. You've no one to show. I'm like, Alan, we've been to the moon, we've done the pyramid. I said, it's not impossible. So it was a bit of when I look back, it was crazy. You know, who would do who would do that? But anyway, I was convinced that it was going to be okay. There's bound to be someone, and there was someone, thankfully, that I found. But yeah, I think in terms of learning, I suppose for me, it's always been, you're talking about your husband being an accountant, but when you have that type of job, I suppose it's a job, but you're always learning new processes and new developments and new structures and new sort of just ways of doing things. And I've always been fascinated by just anything and everything. I've just probably never stopped studying since I did my CA exams. It's just this hunger to learn more. And yeah, and then you couple that with being hugely stubborn. And not so much now, but yeah, 3 years ago, there's been a few times I've been here all night, Erin, and not gone home.
Wow.
So I can't do it so much now, but yeah, just keeping going and keeping going. And I suppose going back to that, I mean, for me, it's it was just this kind of dogged belief that I'll just make it work. And somehow, we're here, we're still learning. I think in some ways, us not knowing everything's actually been quite good, because it's allowed us to maybe not think in a more traditional way, or maybe think of. But when you don't know what you know, sometimes if you did understand completely what was ahead of you, you maybe say, "I'm not going down that path." But for us, it was this voyage of unknown, and there was the excitement, and there was days where you were just down and thinking, "Oh, we can't get this to work, and why is it? It's throwing the shuttle out, it's doing this, it's doing that." But yeah, just not giving up, and knowing that all these people, I'd gone very public with it in social media, and all these people believed in this story, and that it had to happen. I just couldn't let these people down. So there's nothing like knowing there's a few thousand people around the world who are like, "Well, we believe in you. Okay, I can't let you down." So yeah, so I'm still learning, and yeah, I hope I never stop wanting to learn. I just love it.
One of those people who believed in you was Sam Heughan.
Yes.
And can you tell me about that relationship?
Yeah, no, gosh. I mean, yeah, I know everybody who's going to be listening to this will know him probably better than I do, to be honest. But no, he's been, in terms of his sort of graciousness and kindness, because, I can imagine, people who've got such sort of fame and sort of yeah, so many people, who know who he is, and the world is really quite fast, and sometimes probably really, really difficult for a lot of people who are under big spotlights. So for me, it was just I think you'd have to ask him, but for me, it was like an outright just fluke one Sunday that I managed to catch his attention on social media, and I was just like, thank you so much. And that's when we were doing the crowdfunding, and then just kind of never met him probably for about a year, but just kind of he helped, he shared it on. He obviously liked the idea of the project. He thought this is, I'm putting words into his mouth, but he probably thought this is quite good to bring it back. So yes, he helped spread the word about our Build the Mill campaign. Yeah, and then yeah, one Sunday, a phone call, and it's, you're speaking to Sam Heughan, and you're like, "Oh my God, thank you so much for helping us." And then to be blown away to be able to work for him in creating his own design. So yeah, it was just, it was absolute luck. That there's no doubt about it. That one was just sheer luck that day that yeah, he managed to catch his attention with what we were trying to do.
Sam's a terrific guy. I think I've met him a couple of times just briefly, and been able to interview him briefly, but he's gotten involved in a lot of small projects and supporting people. And I think it's just great, that people can, people who have that celebrity and fame can use it in a positive manner, so. So then, like we said, you were featured in last night's episode of Men in Kilts. Tell us about filming that. When was that filmed first? Because we know there were two sets of filming dates.
That's right.
tell us about filming that and how long it took and how long they were there. And
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been very lucky. We had to keep it very quiet, that we were doing, this design for him and things like that. So it was, yeah, so he'd been up a couple of times. But yeah, this is going back to, I think it was September 2019 that they were up when they were first doing, Clanlands type filming back then,
right.
when himself and Graham announced it. I think it was one of the My Peak Challenge gala suppers, which is Sam's amazing charity. Just to go back to, he's such a giving, just a decent guy, we would say. There's nothing, he's just very down to earth,
Right.
and just very, what you see is what you get. And but yeah, so it was the September, and they were going round and doing some bits and pieces, and yeah, so they just, they asked, can we come to the mill? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they were here for a day. They were up here, well, they're kind of moving around the sort of East Coast and West Coast. So we're up for a couple of days, and sort of got to see them when they were at Culloden, and yeah, and then they came out here on the Sunday, and we got the kind of the ladies for Walking the Wool who were all here, and it was the sweetest thing. There was a lady who actually is the same age as one of our oldest looms. It was incredible. So they were all there. They were super excited to meet Sam and Graham, and Gary Lewis, I think it is. Gary Lewis was there as well.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so they were super excited, and it was my dining room table that they were doing the demonstration in. And the funniest thing was, there was at one point, they were all so desperate to get their picture taken with Sam and Graham and Gary and things like that. So the guys were like, yeah, we'll get on the table. So they're lying on the table with all these ladies around them. And I'm thinking, and I'm sitting there going, I have to eat my Christmas dinner off that table. I'm never gonna, I don't know. But no, it was an amazing day. I mean, their schedule was just crazy. I don't know how they did it. They had the most amazing production team who were involved then and involved through what everyone's seeing just now through Sony Starz, in terms of kind of organization. An amazing lady called Michelle, who was just, yeah, she was getting it done. She was getting, she was the boss. She was in charge.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, they were here all day, but they were literally, back to back. I don't know how they did it. I think it was in between Sam was doing filming, so it was like as soon as he probably out of his Jamie gear, he was straight in another vehicle and heading to the next location and doing all of that. So no, it was fantastic. There was, yeah, when you see it on screen, I mean, we've had a couple of people come and do some bits here before, but yeah, there's like, back then in September, it was pre-COVID and everything, but there must have been about 20 folk there in the background, sort of getting everything moving, deploying like a whole army in and out with gear and whatever. But no, it was fantastic. And my daughter came along with me as well, so she could get to meet him. She was a bit shy and embarrassed then. So, but now that she's a little bit older, she's like, oh yeah, she's like tells her pals, yeah, my mum, but yeah, then she was really shy. And I remember Sam saying to her, do you want a picture? And she's like, no. She was just too shy. Now I think she's regretting it. She probably does wish she had a picture. But no, it was a great day.
That's good. It was fun watching the loom working and seeing Sam's tartan being produced. And of course, now we know that's been sold. We've been able to buy pieces from that. So,
I mean, that was just, another sign of incredible generosity of him to be, to not only did he help fundamentally build the mill going. I joke I said, this mill is as much yours as it is mine. I don't think he realizes one day I'm going to hand him the keys and I'm going to go home and I'm going to put my feet up and say it's all yours now. But no, I mean, but fundamentally, I would kind of say we probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him and his kind of generosity in sharing it. But then, yeah, to be able to create his fabric here as well, I just thought, for me, it was that whole integrity piece. I thought, this is amazing. He believes in the whole kind of made in Scotland concept, and that was another bit, going back to a couple of questions here, that it was actually, it's our heritage, it's our culture, and so many amazing people like yourself who've supported us. And for me, I want to be able to give us an authentic a Scottish product as possible, because that's what it is, and people do believe that's what they're getting. So for me, it was like massive kind of hats off to Sam for really having this, that integrity, which I just thought was phenomenal for somebody who, who's got lots of options. Let's put it that way.
So what's next for Prickly Thistle?
Gosh, what's next? I kind of developed my latest kind of strap line is really about, I don't really know the answer to these things in the sense, but then I think that's probably a good thing. I think not knowing where you're going to be in 10 years is probably how every business should run. And this is me having advised companies to always have a long-term plan.
Right.
But it's about just this whole sort of real, relatable relevance. If we tick all those boxes in any year, in any decade, then we're doing a good job and we're being responsible about it. So we keep doing what we do. We've started on the natural fibre. So for us, the big push around sustainability and the awareness and the education around conscious consumerism, and in particular the waste and the modern slavery associated with the textiles industry is a big thing for us. Challenging our own government behind the scenes a little bit on some things we've been doing. We were going to push a little bit more. But yeah, I think, it's with the current situation with COVID, we've got, the climate change COP26 meeting happened this year, which is incredible, but it's all about not just that event, it's the next 200 years, and it's that commitment to that. We've got, I just hope nobody comes, because that's the best thing to do in terms of climate change. Don't travel. I really don't think that it's kind of, it's a bit of a kind of contradiction there, but I'm seeing it's getting very dark. In case everybody's wondering why I'm sitting in the dark, the snow is just chucking down outside and we've lost all light. So I'm now sitting in a bit of darkness. But yeah, so for me, it's really continuing with those sort of sustainable pieces around the native fibres and things like that, but also trying to kind of raise awareness around modern slavery, how actually, if we can address that which is the UN's #1 goal, then we start to see real sort of massive shifts in terms of creating cheap products that compromises on all of those things to kind of, to be accessible. I think if we can resolve poverty, then we don't need to make cheap stuff and make those compromises, because everyone's on a much more level footing. So I think, for me, there's a lot of work we want to do around that. But we just want to go to, when somebody calls for help or there's a movement, we did it with the National Trust for Scotland, we did it with our Massive Integrity, we were quite fundamental in pushing that, and I'm still chasing the ministers. But for us, it's principle. If we see something that's really important, it's not about, oh, that's a sales opportunity. It's fundamentally, can we contribute to this, the right path and not the easy path? And I think, so as long as we keep all those principles, who knows what we'll be doing, Erin, but hopefully it ticks all of those boxes. Whether it's tartan, I hope it'll still be tartan. No, it will still always be tartan, because that's who we are. But we don't know which battle we'll be going to next.
Well, it'll be exciting to keep an eye on you and see what you're doing. The videos that you have put together that are available on your Facebook page are amazing. Whoever's doing your marketing work, your video work is great. And I'm sure that you will continue to attract a lot of supporters and continue to expand your mission.
Yeah, so
it's pretty clear what your mission is. So
yeah, no, I mean it's as I say, it's incredibly humbling, and it just kind of it just drives you and commits you to work harder and take action quicker, and things like that. But going to our films, young Scott, who's done every single one of our films, is an incredible young lad, super talented, and has been able to capture the essence of what we're about and kind of transition a little bit through. We are still fundamentally a heritage and culture, deep-rooted business, but it's how we kind of take that into today's context. But we'll just keep going, and it's just the amazing people on social media. I've been lucky to meet lots of people who came here in 2019 and signed our black box. And I've been very fortunate to go to the US a couple of times and meet people out there. When we did New York Tartan Day Parade, we had people from all over the US come and march with us, and a lady came from Germany and she marched with us, and it was just, I still feel like it didn't happen, I think, because it's been so surreal. But it's I mean, it's just incredible, from the little emails we get from people and the messages, and it's just so private, but it's amazing, and I just feel very, very lucky. I didn't get this sort of job satisfaction from doing tax returns. I can tell you that much. I know getting them in on time is always quite exciting, but that's about as far as it gets. So, but no, it's incredible, and it's allowing me to, become a more humble person as well. So, and then what I teach my children as a mother and things like that. So it's, I feel very, very lucky to still be doing it.
Well, I think that the whole, everything you've done has been terrific. It's fun to have watched over the last couple of years and followed you on social media, and to look at what you're selling and what you're achieving, and hear from you about women now are, I'm quite a bit older than you are, and I think that the women are really making a push to elevate themselves and the people around them.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being one of them.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. No, it's I think you're right. I think it's inspiring that confidence and that equality, isn't it, around that, where there's been traditional kind of stereotyping and sort of preconceptions as to you're qualified, you're not qualified, or just by being the only female in a room full of guys, and then kind of, can they take you seriously? But no, that means so much to me. Thank you, Erin. And I have to say as well, obviously, big shout out to the whole team that work here. We've got some incredible women and guys. They love the fact that there's more women here, I think, than there's men. But we've got the most incredible team of people who, I hope, speaking on their behalf, we all feel the same. We're all, our glasses always half full. And we just took on a new girl just last month to help on the weaving side, and she made this observation, and I thought that it was great. She said, and this is what I'd aspire to, having been in a corporate world where there was always these rules. And she just said, what's really nice is that we all take our jobs really seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. We're this kind of, we're in it together, and we all muck in, but we've got, the team inspire me as well, because they've believed in this, and they've come and joined this kind of slightly, crazy at times workplace. But it's hopefully it inspires others that to not be afraid. Sometimes it's it's got to have the courage to try, and failure's not a bad thing. You grow from it, and you can always turn it into positive. So it's just carrying on, being brave. Like tonight, I'm going to have to get a snow shovel or something so I can get up actually home in my car.
I don't want to keep you any longer.
No, you're fine. I feel like I'm getting more and more into the dark a little bit. I'm just thinking, where I live on the Black Isle, we've got these lovely single track roads, and it's always quite hilly in bits and pieces. And I do remember one time when I did go home. It wasn't an all night job here. I think it was about 1 a.m. and I was like, oh gosh, I better go home. And I looked out and I thought, oh, there's a bit of snow. And I was about a mile from my house and I got stuck on the hill. So I had to leave my car on the hill thinking, please don't fall down into the field. And I ran home and I had to get my husband out of bed and go, Alan, I'm really sorry, but my car's stuck on the hill.
Oh boy.
So he was out and got the van. So I only make these sorts of mistakes once, Erin, and I do learn. I haven't done it since. So so I don't. I at least go home in the snow when I know he might be awake. So if I get stuck, I don't have to actually get him out of bed. But no, it's I've loved chatting with you. As you can see, I just talked for Scotland, but thank you so much
Great.
for inviting me.
You're
And
welcome. I'm hoping to get to Scotland. I have never been there. And last year was supposed to be our year of travel. And we all know what happened last year. So I'm really hoping that maybe next year or push it into 23. My son and his wife live in New Zealand, and we have to get there first. So, we haven't been there yet, but I'm hoping when I can get to Scotland, maybe I can visit you and say hello and meet in person. So.
Absolutely. Our home is everybody's home now. It's absolutely. It'll be, I think it'll when all of it sort of starts to move again, I think there'll be a newfound appreciation, which I think will be a really, the longer it goes on, it's difficult, but I think it allows people to really embrace a more of a permanent change, which I think has got to be a silver lining. So you'd be most welcome anytime.
I can't wait to get there. It's always been on my top of my visit list. So
well, I was going to say, the good thing is with the likes of the shows that Sam and Graham have done with Men in Kilts, you're kind of getting there at the same time with all of those amazing snippets and commentary from them and their interpretation. So that's, you just need to make sure you book them to give you a tour when you do come.
Right, absolutely. And hopefully sooner rather than later. So, well, keep me in mind and, keep me up to date. And if there's ever anything you'd like to get out, let me know. And I'd be happy to chat with you again or write about whatever.
So. Thank you, Erin. Well, no, the whole Outlander community have been, they are a force to be reckoned with. Don't get me wrong. I've witnessed them, and I just think, wow, incredible, moving mountains. And but yeah, I mean, the biggest thanks and the whole, for me, I've said a few times, and I say, but for me, the debt is always owed to Sam for his kindness and belief. So and he's a bit of a rebel ringleader, I think, himself in these things. But it's it's incredible to see a community of people achieving amazing things, and I think that is just that's what it's all about. So thank you very much for having me on.